We're really happy to have you here.
Oh, well, great. Thank you. Your life has changed dramatically over the course of the last few weeks. How are you dealing with that? How's your family?
Well, I think everyone's doing really well. It's been such an adventure. Obviously this is like nothing we've done before. And everyone's just been really kind since we started this. There have been so many people volunteering to help us understand how to do everything. I can't thank people enough for that.
What has been the biggest adjustment? Life has changed a lot.
Yeah, the Secret Service is a big change. And I have to say, they've been amazing. They've really taught us an incredible amount over the last couple of weeks about how to live with a security detail and all of that. But that certainly is a change. We have code names now. Our kids had a lot of fun with that.
Were they able to select their own?
They were, yes.
Oh, that's great. When you started dating JD, y'all met in law school. Did you ever think that you would be here today, that this is where your path would take the two of you?
Oh, no way. That really wasn't on my mind at the time.
You never discussed politics?
We talked about the things that we were interested in. We talked about the issues of the day or things like that. But planning a life like this was just not on the horizon. I was planning to become a lawyer and practice. He, at one point, was planning to do the same thing. And then we talked about having a family and about where we'd like to live and how we'd like to spend our time and all of those sorts of things. From before he announced his Senate candidacy through his Senate candidacy, we had a lot of serious conversations because, we do have 3 children, and giving them a stable, normal, happy life and upbringing is something that is the most important thing to us.
The weekend before the convention, we saw Donald Trump on stage and he was shot. And then a few days later, he announces JD as his running mate. I'm sure that had to be hard for you. How did you get through that?
Yeah, well, it was obviously terrible. And I'm really grateful that President Trump was all right at the end of it. And of course, he had a Secret Service detail that was really looking out for him and was able to get off the stage and all of that. So, just seeing that was incredibly shocking, I think, for everyone. From a personal perspective, I guess I try not to worry too much about that. We've been really lucky. The people who are here, they're just amazing. And I don't know how they do what they do, the Secret Service detail. So I just trust in the fact that most people, the vast majority of people out there, would never think of doing anything like that. And there are a lot of people who have our back.
Some political families decide to keep their children out of the press or even off the stage at conventions or at inaugurations. Have you all talked about that? What do you think you'll do with the children?
Oh, yeah, we have talked about that. They weren't very visible at the convention. They were off sightseeing in Milwaukee, which they actually really loved. But I think what we're going to do is continue to keep them, let them have their lives as children, which I think they really deserve, and let them spend lots of time with their father. And if that's sometimes seen by other people, great. And if it's other times private, great. But I don't think we expect to make them a real feature of any of this.
It was reported that you helped JD with his convention speech and y'all wrote it in the hotel room, and that he helped you with yours.
I actually just wrote mine without his help because I wanted him to hear it for the first time when I got down there to say it to him. Though we do all sorts of stuff like that together. In his case, he worked on it a lot by himself, but I listened to him deliver parts of it, and I gave him my thoughts about where I thought, where I thought he might tweak this or that, or where I thought it was missing something, or where a family story that he might want to convey, he might have forgotten. Maybe you should add that one in, that sort of thing. And that's really fun. That felt like a really lucky opportunity to get to be a part of that.
You did a great job at the convention. Your speech was beautiful. How did you prepare for that? And were you nervous? What was it like to be on national television, thrown into the spotlight in front of tens of thousands of people?
Well, I was definitely nervous, but I was mostly nervous when I found out about it because, of course, we didn't know we were going to be there. So there was a moment of nervousness, a little bit of, can I get out of this? I don't know if this is a great idea. And then the morning, actually, of those remarks, of the introduction, I sat down and just started writing what I might like to say. And that really helped. Once I had this opportunity to put on paper the way that I felt about JD and get to say something about him that other people couldn't say, then it all kind of evaporated. And so it was kind of fun at that point to think, I'm going to go say these things and let people know what I think about him and why he's so special.
What about the ups and downs of politics? Are you prepared for that? I know you've had a taste of it here as when he was a senator, but this is a huge role. Have you talked to Melania? Have you gotten advice from anyone?
I've gotten advice from various friends who found themselves unexpectedly in the spotlight, or honestly just faced crises or other situations that really changed their plans for their lives. We have wonderful friends, many of whom I've known since I was very, very little, and they have just been here for us. And we know what matters to us in our personal lives, in our family lives. And so focusing on that, I think, helps weather all of these ups and downs.
What is some of the advice they've given you?
Well, one really good piece of advice that someone gave me is just not to read the news that much. And it's not burying your head in the sand or anything like that. It's just JD's out there. He's talking about all sorts of things. He's thinking all sorts of things. And I just think he deserves to have someone in his life who hears it straight from him and doesn't just hear what other people are saying about him all the time. And so I think that really helps.
What about the negative press? How does that affect you?
Well, that can be hard. And, sometimes I don't see it all. And sometimes I do see it and I look at it and think, well, this is not the JD I know. This is not accurate. And other times it might spawn discussions or thoughts about what we should do next or how we should live. But I think we've been doing this now for a little while, and I've gotten kind of accustomed to it and grown a bit of a thick skin to it. And so I just try to not let it affect the way that I live.
There are a few comments that are out there that I have to ask you about. In 2021, JD said, "We are effectively run by a bunch of childless cat ladies taking aim at government leaders who don't have children." What was your reaction?
Well, I mean, I took a moment to look and actually see what he had said and try to understand what the context was and all that, which is something that I really wish people would do a little bit more often. And the reality is he made a quip in service of making a point that he wanted to make that was substantive, and it had actual meaning. And I just wish sometimes that people would talk about those things and that we would spend a lot less time just sort of going through this 3-word phrase or that 3-word phrase, because what he was really saying is that it can be really hard to be a parent in this country. And sometimes our policies are designed in a way that make it even harder. And we should be asking ourselves, why is that true? What is it about our leadership and the way that they think about the world that makes it so hard sometimes for parents? And that's the conversation that I really think that we should have. And I understand why he was saying that.
What do you say to the women who were offended or were hurt by that?
Well, I think I would say, first of all, that JD absolutely at the time and today would never, ever, ever want to say something to hurt someone who was trying to have a family, who really, was struggling with that. And he made that clear at the time. And he's made that clear today. And we have lots of friends who have been in that position. It is challenging and never, ever anything that anyone would want to mock or make fun of. And I also understand there are a lot of other reasons why people may choose not to have families, and many of those reasons are very good. I think what I would say is, let's try to look at the real conversation that he's trying to have and engage with it and understand, for those of us who do have families, for the many of us who want to have families and for whom it's really hard, what can we do to make it better? What can we do to make it easier to live in 2024?
So, Usha, how hard is it when you read in the newspaper that some of your former friends or friends, maybe still current friends, will say negative things? They don't like your politics now. You have a friend from law school, Sophia Nelson, who attended your wedding, actually, and she's transgender. She's a public defender in Detroit, and she spoke out last week. And she said JD hates the police, that JD had told her that he hates the police and he felt like minorities were being treated unfairly. So will you explain that to us? Does he hate the police? Did he say something like that?
Well, I haven't looked very closely at what their email correspondence was, so I don't know exactly what it said. JD certainly does not hate the police. I think that is clear through his career and before. He maybe had a negative interaction once or twice and made a remark like that. I don't know. But since then, and always, as long as I've known him, he's had a great deal of respect for them and everything they do to keep us safe. And yes, it is hard to know that sometimes politics comes in the way of friendships. And I think JD made this clear in his own response. It is hurtful and it is sad. And the only thing that I would say is that we've both been in a position of having people speculate about us a lot and draw a lot of conclusions based on sometimes information that isn't even true. And I don't want to do the same about other people. And these are people that I care about. I can't speak to why they say what they say or do what they do, but I care about them and I wish them well.
Well, the left is busy attacking both of you now for past comments that you made about Donald Trump. JD said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, idiot if you voted for him, and might be America's Hitler. And then later he said he was wrong. He admitted that, and he said he didn't think that Donald Trump would be a good president at the time, but he said he ended up being a great president. How do you feel now about Donald Trump?
Well, I've had it several years since then to kind of understand what it is that he is out to do. And, honestly, what JD is out to do. And we have a lot of really good conversations about that. And if I didn't feel that the ticket, the Trump Vance ticket was able to do some real good for the country, then I wouldn't be here supporting him. And JD wouldn't have done this. So that's where we are today.
What about politics? Do you and JD agree on everything politically?
Oh, no. We're two different people. We have lots of different backgrounds and interests and things like that. So we come to different conclusions all the time. But that's part of the fun of being married. And what I never doubt about JD, even when I disagree about this or that, is his intention, what it is that he really wants to do. And I really trust that in him. So sometimes he might say, well, I think this, and I think that. I think that probably makes everything better for him and certainly for me.
Does he ever change his opinions because of your advice?
I think that he treats everything I say with a lot of seriousness and respect. And that becomes a part of the way that he thinks about things, as is true for me. The way that he talks about things and the conclusions he comes to really shape the way that I think about things. So there's a nice give and take, but I think it's a pretty happy one.
Let's talk about JD's life. You met in law school.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the Marines and then went to undergrad, then law school, and that's where you met.
Yeah, well, we met in totally normal circumstances. We were just friends. We had all our classes together in the first semester, and then as time passed, eventually we started dating. But it was a very sort of normal, quiet.
First?
I think it went JD to me first, but I wasn't too far behind.
Okay, that's really cute. Did y'all study together and help each other get through law school?
We did. We would do a lot of stuff together. So we were always hanging out.
What about his military experience? He was in the Marines. How did that shape his life?
That was really transformational for him. Like, he learned just basic skills about how to live, how to carry himself as an adult that he hadn't had before. So there was that. And then I think the process of becoming almost a family with people from all around the country, many of whom had just radically different backgrounds from him, that was also really important. And those are some of his best friends today.
I know the importance of family in society has been part of his platform. Can you explain that? Why is that important to him?
Well, I think it really comes from this background. It comes from the fact that he knows that he would not be anywhere near where he is today if he hadn't had family members who were looking out for him every step of the way. I think it comes from seeing my family and knowing that the stability and sort of calm that I provide in our family life comes from, all of the support that I had, just the faith that things would be okay because I had people behind me. I think that JD needs family to thrive. I do. I think that maybe the most important thing is to know that he has people who every day when he comes back love him and care about him and know who he is. And frankly, that is the most important thing. And that's true for me too. That's how I get through my days and how I have been able to have the life that I've had.
You know him better than anyone. And America is just learning about JD Vance. What do you want them to know about your husband?
I think I want them to know that he's a real person. He's a wonderful father. He is an excellent husband. He's my best friend. He is funny. He has all sorts of dorky interests that, anyone of our age could relate to. You look at the news sometimes and you just see this caricature of a human, and he's a really good person. And I wish that people sometimes would pause and actually listen to the words that he says and try to understand their meaning and their purpose. I think he really cares about having a good conversation about actually changing things for people who have had a very hard time in this country and changing it for the better, letting them have the kinds of lives that he's been lucky enough to have himself. That's what I wish people knew about him.